One of the things I would like to mention is that most sewing machines have a wider foot than you want to use for quilting. So I'm going to take off the foot that comes with the sewing machine, and I'm going to put on instead this 1/4 inch foot. This is really important to maintain the same seam width on all of your quilting pieces. So I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to replace that foot with my 1/4 inch foot, which is a standard quilting foot, and you should really start here. If you don't have that, put a piece of tape on your sewing machine. Okay? And now I'm going to get my threads and get them out of the way. Either hold on to them, or in my case, I can put them over this little ridge here. Now you have 4 triangles that are the same, and we want to make them into pairs. So I'm going to turn the top one over and make that one into a pair, and I'm going to turn this 3rd one over and make that into a pair. And for ease of sewing, I want to start on the square angle rather than on this, because it's a bias, and if you start on the small part, it's going to stretch. Now, if you wish to pin, you can, or you can just eyeball it. What we're after is a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch. So if you could zoom in on this, I want to make sure that I'm starting 1/4 inch from the edge and 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now this is usual, that this is different from most quilting techniques, and this is the tip. Start sewing 1/4 inch from the edge. Don't just start on the outside edge. Leave that 1/4 inch unsewn, and that's very important. And now we're going to stitch along here. Now I often chain piece my things to make it easier. So I'm just going to pick up my foot and continue along on the next piece here. Again, don't sew the first 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to match this up with my fingers and hold on to it. I'm kind of scratching the fabric to get it all lined up. There we go. Now I have a pair of triangles sewn together. So I'm going to remove these from my sewing machine, clip them apart, and move over to the ironing board. I'm showing you a completed square so that I can illustrate to you that these seam allowances need to go ironed in a pinwheel fashion, around and around. So let's go back to our pieces that we've sewn together. Here they are, and I'm going to line them up, and I'm going to iron one this way. You can see that first 1/4 inch isn't sewn. That's important. And then we're going to iron this going the other way. Now I really like to make sure everything's ironed really well, so I go from the top and push the iron against the seam like this. And that really gives you a nice clean edge. Like this. And now we're ready to sew our next piece together like this. So I'm going to flip this over, and the only place I need to pin is right here at this 1/4 inch. Remember where we started and when we left the 1/4 inch without sewing it? I'm going to put a pin there, and I'm going to put a pin in the second piece. Can you see that? That I've put the point of the pin exactly where I started to sew, a 1/4 inch from the raw edge. And then I'm going to lift that up and look at the second piece and put the pin a 1/4 inch in the same place. Now that'll guarantee that our center will line up. And I'm just going to pin that. That's the only pin I'm going to put in my set of triangles. And now we're going to go back to the sewing machine, and I'll show you how to put that together. And now we're going to assemble this last seam of our bullseye square. And I'm going to, this time, start at the edge and sew all the way through. It's only here in the center that you wanted to leave that 1/4 inch unsewn. Now I'm going to pull out my pin and try not to sew over it. And I'm going to line up these very narrow ends and hold on to those, but don't pull because it's on the bias. You don't want to stretch your seam. Just let the sewing machine feed it through for you. There we go. I'm going to take that out of the machine and return to my ironing board. Now we have our block and it's completely sewn. And remember, we wanted our seams to be ironed in a pinwheel fashion. So I'm going to iron this one facing this direction, and I'm going to iron this one facing this direction. And look what happens right here in the center. If you've ever had a big wad of fabric in the center of your piecing, this little tip is wonderful. See how that lies flat and opens up? If you would zoom in on that, this is a wonderful tip. And I have received this tip from Colleen Granger out of this book, Kaleido Quickies. And she has some amazing and wonderful fun and fast quilts done with these techniques. For instance, this one done with stripes. And you can go to her website, www.solittletimequilting.com, and purchase her books because they are so fun and fast. I'm just giving this a final iron. Fabulous! We have a bullseye square, and each one of these is going to be different from the others. Now it's not exact because it's a hand-painted looking fabric, but that's the effect we're after. And we'll be utilizing these bullseye squares in our finished quilt. So we've been using my hand-painted looking stripe, which you can find on my website, www.ellenedith.com, and we've got it out of this Tropical Breeze kit, which has all the instructions and all the fabric you need to make a 53-inch square kit. And I wanted to show you, although we've been working in the Spice colorway, here it is in the Brights. And I've made up a whole bunch of bullseye squares, and look how different they are depending on where you cut the stripe. And if you don't like a color, you can avoid it. But these are all the different looks you'll get out of one stripe fabric. Isn't it fun? Each of my kits has all the fabric you'll need for the top and a double binding. For instance, this Tropical Breeze kit makes a 53-inch square kit and comes with the large piece of the focus fabric, 2 yards of your painted stripe, and an instant border and a coordinating print. It also comes in this wonderful blue colorway. And here's the instant border for that one, the painted fabric and the coordinating fabric. The only thing you'll need to provide is your sewing skill, the bat, and the backing.